That's for those of y'all who are watching a replay. Shout out to all the cougars out there. But some of y'all are unintentionally cougars. Some of y'all are rocking the cradle. And I'm not talking in a literal sense, but some of y'all are dating dudes who are simply just not old enough, just not mature enough. And let me back up and give you some backstory. So y'all know after my free webinars, I do a live Q&A. My last webinar was how to stop being a man's internship, right? So one young lady, she sent in the question and she got mad at me because of my answer. I guess she was one of them that wanted to hear only what she wanted to hear, but she came with all these complaints. My man doesn't do this. My man doesn't do that. And I said, hey, look, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Your man doesn't sound like the problem. What you mean he's not the problem? He did this, don't invalidate me, I'm like, look, calm down. It sounds like your man isn't the problem. The problem is you never checked his ID. What do you mean I didn't check his ID? You trying to call me a pedophile? I'm like, no, I'm not trying to call you a pedophile. You never checked his ID, not the one that's on the license, but the one that's on his maturation. And it's just like a lot of women these days. Y'all are having all of these clashes because you never checked that man's ID to know if he was old enough to even date you, if he was actually an adult, or if he was just walking around in an adult's body, like the little Rugrats or something like that. Y'all will be cougars unintentionally, mentally and emotionally cougars. You dating somebody who really way younger than you. I ain't gonna go so far as call y'all pedophiles or nothing like that, but a lot of y'all are having all these clashes because you dating somebody who's not equally yoked just in terms of your maturation. He's a good dude. He's a great dude, just like a great child or a great adolescent. But he's not ready for the level of life that you're at. Matter of fact, maybe I'm tripping. Put I down in the chat if you've ever started dating somebody and on paper, from the job to how they look, you thought you were dealing with an adult up front, but then as you got to know this man, it started feeling more and more and more like you were dealing with a little child. Not even to be contemptuous or disrespect. It just really felt like you were dealing with a child. Put I down in the chat if that's ever been you. Somebody keep it real with me. Matter of fact, I'm gonna tell you 5 ways to know if you are dealing with a man who's actually not a man. He's a child in a man's body. And this is no slight to him. He just needs to grow up. He's just underdeveloped. The first way you know is if it feels like you're reaching back to a younger version of yourself in order to connect with him. And not in like we all got some like playfulness about us, childlike quality. That's cool. I'm talking about just to make him understand things. You got to think back to whenever you was in college, when you was in high school, for the type of conversations y'all are having, for the type of words and wording that you use, for the type of things that y'all do together. It just feels like you're much younger than what you want to be. And I'm not talking about in a nice, blissful, youthful sense, but like in a really, I've been here before. I overcame these types of thought patterns a long time ago. I don't even think like this no more. I don't hang out in these places no more. Why are we doing this? That's one way to know. That's one signal that you are rocking the cradle on a mentally emotional level. You with a guy who's honestly just mentally not old enough for you. Y'all are not in the same dating range at all. Another way that you know that you're dealing with a guy that's just really just mentally too young for you is if he tries to keep up with you in a way that he can't sustain. Y'all ever had a dude try to fake like he knows wine, like he likes to travel, like he has mature priorities, and it just felt fake. It just felt forced and coerced, and it was like nobody forcing you to act like this. And then when you see them in their natural element, it's like, oh, this is the real you. You see him around his boys, you see him maybe with his family or something like that. You see some videos of him online, just, in his personal spaces or whatever. You're like, oh, that seems more like you, and you're a child. That's how you know that's another way that you know that you're dealing with a man who's mentally just too young for you. Don't mean he's bad. Don't mean his character is bad. But when you're dealing with a guy like this, you're always going to feel unfulfilled. You're always going to feel like you're not mentally stimulated enough. You're always going to ask things of this guy that he simply can't do because it takes time to mature. You can't just make a decision and be mature. You have to mature through time, through intentional effort. Another way to know that you're dealing with a guy who's mentally too young for you is if the dynamic naturally feels overly maternal. Like not just when he's sick, because honestly, most guys turn into a big old baby whenever they're sick, and not just in affection, but you feel like, you're picking up behind this guy. You're telling him to do every little thing. You're reminding him that he got work to do. He got work in the morning. Why are you staying up all night? Why are you over here doing this, that, and the other? I thought you was on your goals, your purpose. I thought your family was important. Why are you complaining about this, that, and the other? It just feels like you're dealing with this little 13-year-old, and then you become like the maternal factor. Instead of feeling like you're dealing with a man, it feels like you're raising a child. It feels like you're having to coddle him so he doesn't get offended. You're always having to cover for him mentally and emotionally in every conversation to where you're leading or even carrying the conversations. It just feels like you're his mommy. And if that's the case, more than likely you're dealing with a man who's mentally too young for you. And it can be really frustrating, especially as a woman. First off, if there's going to be that dynamic at play, and I'm not saying it should be overly on this, it should be vice versa. Only in the sense that the man is the provider and he's a leader. You should feel like, this man is helping me become a much greater version of myself. And as a result, I'm able to maximize everything in his life that he already had going on before me. But it should feel like if anybody's in a leadership role at all, it should be your man. Like he's stronger than you. He can figure things out whenever you don't necessarily have the answers. If it's vice versa, especially if it's a matter of maturation, you're going to feel more in your masculine, and even worse, you may feel more like his mommy. It's going to be hard to get turned on by that man the same. That's how you know that you're dealing with a man who's just mentally immature and just not on your level. Even if he's not a bad guy, he ain't even done nothing wrong. But you can't even get sexually drawn to him the same way. Because it's just been feeling like you've been dealing with your child, and that doesn't put you in a very sexy mood. Another way that you know that you're dealing with a man who's mentally simply too young for you is if his non-destructive habits turn you off. I don't know how many times I've seen y'all talk about a man who play video games, a man who always want to be in the clubs. And y'all, I'm not here to shame nobody. But if his non-destructive, and I'm talking about things that don't hurt his health, things that aren't necessarily, hurting anybody else. But if you just look at some of the things that he does and you're just like, ugh. And we're not talking about, he likes his favorite sports team. But you're looking at stuff and like, man, that just reminds me of when I was in middle school and high school. You're looking at how he enjoys himself. And you're like, hold on, these things, he's mentally too young for you. There's something to be said about compatibility, even for extracurriculars, even for hobbies. There's something to be said for compatibility there too. You have to be able to look at your man and feel like you're dealing with a mature energy. You have to feel like that. That's why older men are typically more attractive to women. Like maturity, a little bit wiser of a disposition typically appeals to the feminine nature. So if you're dealing with a man and just how he carries himself, just how he hang out, just things he's into, you just be sitting there like, ugh. You ain't got to shame him. You ain't got to start no fuss with him. You may just have to admit, first off, if it's a really big deal and it's messing up the polarity in the relationship and it's messing up how you look at him, you might just have to admit this guy's just too young. Maybe you're better for a younger woman. Maybe we could do something, but we definitely can't do relationship. We definitely can't do life. Because at a certain point in your life, you're not doing romantic partnerships anymore. It's not about just the cuddly, fuzzy, wuzzy feelings. It's about somebody who is compatible in your life and can help you increase that, which brings me to my fifth point. If you are dealing with a man and by being connected to him, nothing in your life improves, nothing develops, no new perspective that you're introduced to, no new questions that you're asking about life or answers that you're getting to questions that you had already. If by being connected to this man, nothing about you evolves naturally, you're dealing with a man who may be mentally too young for you. Now, he may be destructive and therefore he's bringing you back in life. But if you're dealing with a guy and you just notice like, hey, this is a net negative, like, because I'm just wasting time. We're wasting time. We're not going anywhere. There are no goals being achieved. There's new levels of ourselves that are being realized. There's nothing good that's being deepened. This connection is stagnant at best. It stopped at the honeymoon phase, if it ever even got there. It stops at physical attraction. Nothing about you is increasing as a result. You're not being inspired. You're not being taught. You're nothing. Your mind is not being expanded in any way. More than likely, you're dealing with a man who's mentally too young for you. And that's not to say you're just better than him. You're just older than him. This is what it is. We're not better than children. You know what I'm saying? Children are the future. But we're not made to let children be in certain roles in our life. And the same thing may go for the man that you chose. Yeah, he looks a certain way and his job is he makes a certain amount of money or whatever. But internally, that intuition ain't gonna let you sleep at night if you with a man who's honestly not for you. If he's not taking you higher in life, and I'm not necessarily talking about just finances either, but if he's not taking you higher towards your fullest potential, he can't properly love you, he can't properly cultivate the fruits that you're capable of, and therefore, you can't properly reciprocate the value that you're supposed to give to a man. And you're not even gonna feel like the type of woman you wanna feel like, knowing that there's so much more you should be able to offer a man and see blossom from a man whose life you're in, but you know that he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's not in position. And yes, it starts with us as men because we're leaders. Now, unfortunately, sometimes you might have a man and he's mentally immature, but he sees what you're capable of. And he allows you and your stubborn nature in denying the fact that he's not on your level, he allows that to be his leverage to use you to upgrade for another woman. These are the type of situations where a man will at some point, after you done introduced him to this, you take on the man role in this situation. You just allow yourself to be the maternal factor, the masculine factor, and then after years and years of doing that and the relationship really not moving along the way it's supposed to, he just discards, moves on, in a relationship with another woman, acting like a brand new version of himself, the exact version that you were asking him for. You see, in that situation, I call it a relationship, really I call it an internship. All he was doing is stopping by for a little while, get some tools and equipment to love on the next woman with everything that you honestly should have been receiving. Now, I went in depth about how to avoid that trap because there's a few simple strategies. I don't know why people make it so complicated, but nobody talks about it. But there's a few simple strategies you got to use in order to avoid that at all costs. If you want those strategies, click the link that you see pinned down in the comments. If you don't see it in the comments, because sometimes it get a little funky, click the link that you see in the caption. It's in the caption. It says free masterclass, how to stop being a man's internship. The free masterclass, by the way, like I said, because you want to be the woman that a man prepares for, not the woman that's always preparing a man for the next woman, or in some cases, raising a man for the next woman. But back to what I was saying. Some of y'all are unintentionally cougars. Now, I got love for everybody. Do you? You know what I'm saying? But if on a spiritual level, you feel like something ain't right, you losing attraction. The deeper you go with this man or attempt to go with this man, you're losing attraction. You feel like, you know, he's keeping you young or making you younger, but not in a good way, in a way that brings you backwards and all of the work that you put in on yourself. You're probably dealing with a man who's mentally not your age. You gotta check a man's ID. And if he ain't over whatever adult is per where you're at as a mature grown woman, you need to let him know he need to go stick to the playground. He need to go over there. He need to go back to his mama so she could finish what she had started, was supposed to have finished before he came to you. You'd be glad you did and regret it if you didn't. But those are just my thoughts. I'm your internet big brother trying to look out per usual. And look, if you got something of value from this conversation, I don't want your money, keep your money. But what I do want you to do is pay it forward to somebody else on your timeline so they can be blessed the same way that you got blessed. And you do that by hitting that share button. That's all. Just a little quick little down to the right, whatever you see it. Hit that share button if you got something of value from this. And if you want to get access to that masterclass before it comes down, click the link that you see in the caption. Also, it should be pinned down in the comments, but if you don't see that by my page right there, click the link that's in the caption. It'll take you to the masterclass again for free before it comes down. How to stop being a man's internship. All right.